back to the Heartland Mamas. I'm Murray Brio.
And I'm Heidi Henry coming to you from two socially distant studios at the edge of the Great Red Divide. For every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. on Facebook, we bring you the progressive views and news that you can use. You can find all of our previous episodes at heartlandmamas.com, on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and probably part of the Demcast USA network. Murray, today we're going to talk about, oh my God, the GOP not even making sense anymore. And
Okay,
when the and when the person making sense is Adam Kinzinger, like my least favorite person,
yeah,
we're in trouble.
there's
They're
a
in trouble.
train and it's off the tracks. And they say,
Completely.
what they say with sitcoms, right? Is that after so many seasons, it jumps the shark.
Yes,
The
yes,
GOP has officially jumped the shark. I mean,
it really is.
look at
No, I,
what they are doing right now. We need to start at the local level, okay? And
yeah,
and part of the local level issue is what they have done in Arizona, where they got a hold of all of the federal ballots that they probably shouldn't have because the Republican GOP said okay. And a company by the name of Cyber Ninja sounds completely legit. They sound way legit.
and
Uh,
and Cyber Ninja is headed up by somebody who is a close follower of the
QAnon.
So
Yeah.
nothing can go wrong here, folks. You
Mike
know?
Liddell, when Mike Liddell is telling you that they're rocking it because he brought this company on board,
Are they
you
giving
know
co-op
there
rights?
is no hope, right? And
No, there's
I
no
don't
hope.
think the average American thinks that there is still hope. I honestly, I think about 70% of
For
Americans
what? Hope for what?
believe
That we
that
violate our U.S. Constitution and yank down Biden and put Trump in, in power?
George Soros is a powerful man. I'm just saying. George Soros, he got some pull. Anything's possible. I think he was snatching babies. Oh wait, that's Matt Gaetz. My bad.
And George Soros would be working for the other team, as far as I understand, because there's this weird phenomenon that all Democrats know George Soros, and I'm not really sure, except for a wrinkly old man, who the heck he is.
Oh, you didn't get the memo? I'm on the text list. He
Oh, is he the guy that
uses
pays us to show up in protest?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's the guy
He's
who
the
sends my
guy
check.
whose
Yeah.
name is on the check for the protest. I can't believe you're not in the message group. I hear from him all
No,
the
I
time.
just cash the checks. I just cash the checks.
Dude, I get it. I get it. Hey, man, I know.
Yeah,
But,
no one's
that
ever paid
sounds
me to do that.
crazy. And as a Democrat, talking about
Yeah.
George Soros sounds crazy. But that, it, even in the farthest stretches of the imagination, there might be a possibility. There is no possibility. But they
No.
have gone beyond George Soros to the hate-filled tour that is G&G touring around the country. I think it's called "I Hate Everything But Donald Trump." I don't know what's the name of the tour.
Uh, well, when Gates and Taylor Green are your spokesmodels for your party, you're in trouble. You've got the guy that literally is facing indictment right now. It hasn't happened, but it's coming for bringing underage women,
Across state
children,
lines.
not no, out of the country and paying them to have sex with him. And so he took them to the Bahamas, which is not the United States. So what's going to happen to Matt Gates is he's going to find out that orange is the new black. I'm just saying. And he
He's
should,
fond
because
of the
those are
color
children.
orange.
Yeah, yeah, he really is. Maybe he can start spray painting himself. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, Marie, I asked you in pre-show if you thought she was doing tantric voting because she's really into tantric sex. So I'm wondering if tantric voting is next for MTG. Just saying.
As long as you're white and Christian and believe that Donald Trump is the what the Republican Party is supposed to be, you know,
I'm white and Christian, and I don't believe that.
But I'm saying her people, unless you are that, I don't think she would be into I don't think she wants anybody to vote, let alone tantrically vote.
If we could do tantric voting, and it would no longer, the suppressive voter laws that were passed in Georgia and Florida would no longer be an issue. Murray, maybe we're on to something. Tantric voting.
Well, we may have to look into that. I'm not exactly sure how that would work,
I'm just,
but I got pretty orgasmic when Trump lost, so I
oh,
don't know.
well, it was
That
a
kind of already
celebration.
happens,
It was a
right?
celebration with corks popping at the Henry household, let me tell you. So,
Hey, but it is really funny to see these two people who represent all Americans, but those from their district who are so embattled right now between QAnon space lasers and
Mazel tov.
underage young yeah and underage girls and as outsiders
Underage girls,
we
by the way, are children. They're
right
children,
yeah
just
we
saying.
see this and see the absurdity of it, right? Like we are looking at it not as a part of this group. So that's one thing that's hard to understand is just the sheer lunacy of it. But then you have legislators like Lindsey Graham, who everybody knows, Lindsey has no backbone spine. He does what's best for Lindsey. But
Right.
to see Lindsey Graham, who has a lot more credibility as a legislator, at least, than Gates and Green do, he's got more
Yeah.
reputation.
True.
To hear him come out and say on one of the Sunday shows, yeah, look at this is the only way we are going to get people to come out and vote for us, for Republicans, is if we are the party of Donald Trump. And
Now,
that is
Murray,
and they don't have anything else to offer, Heidi. They
that's
can't
true.
motivate voters by policy. They can't motivate voters by rage, and that's all they have is rage and fear, and that taps into that tiny group of Trumplicans. Regular Republicans want nothing to do with this anymore.
Well, Murray, I guess when you're the party of exclusion, when you find ways to exclude people from society, from uh, faith, from God, if you are like this, you are excluded from God. And you're not a faith believer, but I am, and I know that that's not a possibility because nobody can make that decision for you, no earthly person. But if you're exclusionary about who can be educated, who can have health care, who can walk the street safely at night, who can carry a gun and who can't, who can vote and who can't. If you're exclusionary all the time, and it's very specific exclusionary things, LGBTQ, female, people of color, those people are not allowed to have any of the rights.
Muslims, space
Well, yeah,
lasers,
space places. So when
Hindu.
you when you talk about these things and you wonder why they can't attract people to their party, and at the same time, the only way they can win is to create these horrible exclusionary voting laws that prevent people from voting and allow them to pick new delegates in case the party that's in charge of their state doesn't like how the vote goes. We're treading into treasonous territory here, and I mean not a little bit. We have dived in
Heidi,
and
you are
gone
so
for it.
spot on, and that is where I was going with this is the legitimacy of, say, a Lindsey Graham, even though we don't think he has legitimacy, but the legitimacy out there of a Lindsey Graham among the regular people saying that this is the party of what it is, adds to that that falseness, that lack of reality that they are all functioning in this
No,
fictional
Murray,
bubble.
you and I disagree on this slightly, but I keep telling you all of these people who are so Trumplican. that are serving in office right now or are on the periphery of that, and I'm looking at you, Franklin Graham, are all people who Trump has dirt on. He has them by the short hairs. And for somebody like Lindsey Graham does not aspire to be president or vice president or a cabinet position. Lindsey Graham is kind of at his zenith right now. This is where he's going to go and where he's going to retire. So the fact that Trump is gone now, he's doubling and tripling down on Trump mania, means that, to me, it's obvious that there's something going on. There's something to that.
And I think you're right. When we talked about this over the years of the Trump era, we did talk about how, logic, but we're assuming that they started to be a part of politics for the right reasons in the first place. And that may not be the case. If he's got dirt on them, right, to get them to support him and do what he wants, then they probably weren't in it for the right reason in the first place.
Well, no, obviously not, Marie. And maybe they were in it for the right reason, but then they also had this other thing going on. And that was just kind of their personal life. But it was egregious and maybe illegal and maybe very, very embarrassing. So he collects, the thing is about Donald Trump, and I remember reading about him in the 70s going on the train going into Chicago to work, about how he does two business models. He writes contracts or signs contracts that he's no intention of enforcing. I shouldn't say enforcing, of paying. So if he tells you he's going to pay you $100 for this tape measure,
he won't pay you the back end. Yep.
He's going to call you up and say, you're going to take 25% of what I said I was going to pay you, and you're either going to take it, or you're going to have to take me to court, and it will cost you more to settle than that 25%, right?
Absolutely.
So he's got that's his number one, and that's not the art of the deal. That is stealing, right? That is
stealing.
It's
being a bully.
Yeah, and he's put more contractors into bankruptcy. I mean, the world is littered with people that he's walked over. And the other thing he's always done is collected dirt on both his friends and enemies to use
when he needed
down the road. Yeah, when he needs it. Because, I mean, what happened with Franklin Graham was pretty private until he decided that it didn't need to be private anymore. And then Franklin Graham was gone out of the circle.
And I'm just going to say that Matt Gaetz, there's a bit of suspicion that I do have with when he said he would leave his position in Congress to defend Trump. Something said there is my bullshit detector went off. Pretty hardcore there. And as we find out, he was desperate to make sure Trump stayed in office because this investigation has been going on or brought to the attention for 3 years. 3 years, huh? But it stayed quiet from the Justice Department. Yeah.
Right. Until it couldn't stay quiet anymore because
and here's the thing.
The lid was off the bucket.
Trump has a history of doing this. This is who he is. He's a terrible person. Yep. We know this. But what I don't understand is you're not going to get any money from him, right? You're not going to, but he's even told supporters that they shouldn't. I know that they shouldn't contribute to the RNC. They're to contribute to him, and he decides.
Because they go in his pocket,
right? So the Republicans have made him a king, and he decides who gets the funds. They're not even pushing back on that, right? No. So we all know what you just said. It goes in the pocket. It is not going to go into the campaigns. It will only go to what he wants. And then we know corporations have pulled funding. Some of them have backslid a little, but many of them have still held on. And that's a loss in campaign money. And people aren't going to donate to the candidate, to the people in office. They're going to donate to Trump because it's the party of Trump. And he isn't going to have your back because he only looks out for himself, like you said, with the contractors. So why does anyone other than absolute blackmail? I can't imagine why anyone goes along.
I'm not sure what he's got on Kevin McCarthy, or if it's just that Kevin McCarthy is making a power play and he's putting all his chips in there. But then you look at the ones that have stood up to him, and surprisingly enough, it's been Adam Kinzinger, my congressman, who I find to be one of the most wretched, reprehensible people that walk the face of this earth.
But you know what? You're right. But think about it. Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 98% of the
I
time
know.
on
I
Republican
know.
conservative policy.
Mm-hmm.
They are being thrown out by the
Right.
wayside for Stefanik, who has a 64% Trump voting rate. And the only reason is because she's a woman who says, Hail Trump. We're doing this, people. We are literally doing this to ourselves.
I think that was Stefanik. It is a tantric sex thing. I'm just saying, you know.
You are really on this tantric sex thing
Every
today.
time I think about it, it's like I told you in pre-show, the only two people I've ever heard about that from, Ding and Liz Cheney. No, no, no. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Those are the only two people staying in Marjorie Taylor Greene that have ever talked about this, right? Like that's their thing. And I'm just thinking, that's not how any of this works. You know?
It's not. And you know, it gets very concerning because while it is crazy and it is the show we did the other day that talked about Mitch McConnell's hypocrisy in what civic education is supposed to be. It's all layered on each other, and you see representatives who are desperate and states who are desperate to
Yeah.
hang on to
They have
this.
no money. They have no money, and they're desperate to hope to catch Trump's eye
And
to
I
get some
think that
funding.
they've all hooked their sails to this ship and they don't know how to stop it. And then you have Liz Cheney, who's getting bounced out of her chair position.
And she has been a reprehensible voter. I mean, she doesn't even talk to her sister anymore because her sister is LGBTQ, and because of that, uh, I find her to be just a horrible kind of a human being. Because how, well, we can do a whole show
There's
on
a
Liz Cheney.
lot of horrible human beings, but you're right.
Yeah,
So, on social issues, on financial issues, again, she voted with Trump consistently,
yeah.
right? And voted
Hmm.
with Trump consistently. And yet someone like Stefanik is being bound or is being elevated who didn't even agree with what shallow policies he had. So, while we're sitting here
Stefanik has
saying,
gone from 68% voter to 100% QAnon. I mean, like overnight, like light switch. Like
but
she's
think
been,
about that. Just think about how twisted this is for a sec, Heidi. I mean,
oh,
we have two Republican legislators who believe everything that Trump says and does 100% voting wise, right? Their
yeah,
votes back it up. Yet we
right.
have people who don't agree with any of the policies or agree with
Hmm.
less of the policies
Yep.
but are crazy and we're going to let them in. And we are talking about the ones that are horrible that like Trump policies as being good people. I, it's
And
boggling.
I told you every time I have to find something, read something, I read and listen to everything that Kinzinger does, and even though it makes my skin crawl, because I've stood in front of his office as a one woman protest. I don't know how many times over
I
health
know.
care because he would rip it away from everyone because he's a horrible person. And he said probably one of the most succinct analogies is that they're on the GOP is on the Titanic and it's hit the iceberg and it's starting to bob. And yet people are jumping off in droves. They're getting off and the thing breaks apart. And yet there's guys out there playing the cello and playing, there's a string quartet playing. And Trump is running around looking for women's clothes so he can
Close
get
to
off
get
the
on the
boat.
lifeboat first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he hit
he
that on
can't,
the head.
Trump can't get off that damn boat because it's his boat. And here's all these people that are going to go down with the ship.
And here's the thing, these
Very few
Republican
survivors from
leaders
this.
who were power hungry and divisive and
Yeah,
everything along the way have given up everything for
everything.
this guy. They gave up their power, they gave up their money source, they gave up their voters. They literally abdicated every benefit they had as a party to this man who isn't even gonna. It makes no sense on so many levels.
You know, the problem with the alt-right and the QAnon coming in with some corruption through social media fueling this, and watching people just change sides and change courses, and the Republicans that are on the USS Trump Titanic, and you watch them, and some of them are like the rats that jumped off the ship are jumping back on and hanging on for dear life, and they're gonna go down, Murray, because even the crazy guys that live around me that have been flying under, you know, Trump stuff forever have it all down and packed away now. I mean, there's once in a while you run into some crazy
And we see that in the
bastard that has
polling.
it up still.
You know, it has
Oh my God, the
dropped. His
polling.
popularity has dropped among Republicans, among
Yep.
voters. And I think the Republicans are so used to scamming the system that they
They're
think,
scamming each other.
yes,
They're
it will
scamming each other,
transfer.
Murray.
The Trump vibe will transfer, but we saw in Georgia that didn't happen. In
No.
Georgia, when you didn't have Trump on the ballot, what happened? You are not going to get the same response. I mean, the Gates and Green tour that's going around has 1/16 of the crowds and no excitement. Trump was the sell. He is gone, and they're all still trying to sell it.
Well, Murray, one of the things Liz Cheney did is she spoke out about the fact that Trump's polling numbers have dropped so low that they're almost microscopic. And the party is not sharing that data with candidates. It's not sharing that data. They're telling him that, you know, he's still just as popular as he ever was. Well, you know, he only spoke to about maybe at the best 41% of the country because the rest of us aren't crazy. And that 41% has diminished to down below, what is it, 26% right now. So his numbers are falling, and they're falling so rapidly. As in Biden's numbers have come way up. He's at like 63% approval rating for the direction of how the country's going, and people are not feeling as oppressed as they were for the last 5 years. And
Well,
you
you're
know,
not
why
under
is it going down?
constant stress.
Right.
It's not turning on the news every 2 seconds and
Unless you
finding,
go
you know
to,
what? Nobody cared. They've even stopped
yeah,
covering Biden press conferences. That's how it should be. That is
yeah.
how and new reporters should have to find stories, not have the stories be what they want you to watch. It's the distraction
Bombast.
game.
Bombast of the
It's
day. Bombast
and I
of the
can't
day.
believe they're falling for it themselves. How
Well,
silly are you?
but so since Liz Cheney pointed out to Kevin McCarthy, look, you're not being honest with our candidates. If they think that Trump is still popular and they put all their chips in that basket, when people go to the polls, they're not going to vote for them because they're Trumpers, and people don't want that anymore. But instead, McCarthy directed that they not be told any of those numbers. So Liz is in charge of the party. McCarthy is the minority leader of the House. So now they're going to put in Stefanik, who will do whatever McCarthy tells her to do because she's gone
Absolutely.
completely QAnon. So, you know, part of me is like, yeah, go ahead and do it because we're going to keep watching you sink because that's going to sink all of your candidates in next
But
year.
here's
I,
the
you
scary
know,
part. You're right. Logic, reason, rationality,
it's
polling,
gone.
money, all of those things, Heidi, I would agree with you at any other point in our nation's history that you are right. Unfortunately, behind all of the crazy are these very damaging states that are Republican controlled that have decided, like Georgia and Florida, that they can just switch the electors if they don't like them in an
But
election.
the For the People Act just went into committee. And the For the People Act, Marie, will certify new voting rights, will certify the ability of people to vote all over the USA without being impeded. It'll supersede those
State
laws.
laws, which
Yeah,
is
those
why
state
it's
laws.
that much more important. And the only way
It
to
is
do it is to
so
get rid
much
of the
more important.
filibuster.
Listen, if you can attack and take away the delegates that have to do their constitutional job after an election because your state party doesn't like how the state voted, that is so effing scary. I can't even believe it. That is a coup from the inside out.
Just
That
like
is a
Lindsey
coup, just
Graham
like
said,
January
if
6th
we
was.
don't embrace Trump, no, he said, if we don't embrace everything Trump, we will never get elected again. That is all they're thinking about. And the ramifications are insane.
The
I really
Post
hope they
called it.
go the
That's
way
not
of the dodo.
true.
I'm hoping that they go the way of the dodo and extinct. Sorry, I feel really bad for the dodos. They were kind of like,
Huge.
animals. But
Well,
um,
yeah. You know, I don't know, Murray. I look at this and I think, yeah, it's been called a circular firing squad. You and I have been part of the Democratic Party long enough to watch us shoot at each other too.
oh
I
yeah.
I, I got caught in that in
But
my
that's
race,
just it, Heidi. Again, I'm sorry, listeners. I've said this 3 times, but if any of you could please, if you come up with how this works, shoot us a message,
Yeah.
call, text, like, subscribe, share. Please let me know. But you win an election by getting votes. Now you can buy votes, or you can disenfranchise people, or you can have a message and believe in something. I mean, there's many ways to get votes.
Right.
But, you win by getting votes. And nobody wants to vote for you anymore.
No.
Then you win if you don't have people wanting to vote for you with money. But nobody is giving you money anymore. They're giving it to this guy over here. And then you've got
You
this
know,
reputable creature saying if we don't embrace it, we'll never win another election. But what are you winning for? If you don't have any beliefs and you don't have any morals and no loyalty to the government that you serve,
yeah.
guys, if you figure it out, let me know, because I am
Well,
confused.
in what we're seeing is, the membership in the Republican Party has dropped off, and a lot of people not choosing to go to become Democrat, but when available, independent, and more often libertarian, which really, if you care about how your tax dollars are spent or the fact that your schools are funded and your roads are plowed and we have an infrastructure bill pending, you don't want to vote libertarian because they don't, for them, every, survival of the fittest, and you don't matter. It is typical of the fountainhead analogy I used on our enrolled thing yesterday when we recorded it. Some people matter, most of you don't. That's the
Right.
libertarian way.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
They read too much
And if the
Ayn Rand and
libertarian method would work, that would mean that altruism would have to exist. And we know altruism does not
does
exist
not exist.
because
It's
we
been
live in a
beaten out of us by
mercenary
regulism.
capitalistic society where you are
Yeah,
either kill or you be killed.
guilt,
And that's
right?
how it is. And guys, I don't know what's going to happen in the long run with the GOP
Do you
and the
think they'll find the
party.
bamboo ballots? I'm just wondering where these bamboo ballots are. Because I have a bamboo steamer in my house. It's 15 years old. And if I can find that in my cupboard, why can't they find
The
the bamboo
bamboo ballots.
ballots?
Right. I mean, guys,
It's
so
invisible
please
ink.
spread a little bit of sanity. Be you unless you're a Republican, and then don't be a Republican anymore.
Stop
And but
hating. Stop hating.
all
Stop hating.
right.
That's all.
So join us later this week on Thursday at 3 p.m. live Central Standard Time on Facebook. Be sure to get all of our previous episodes on YouTube, podcasts, any place you get your favorite podcast, the Demcast USA. And also look for our Unrolled on wherever you get your independent radio. So, guys, thanks again. We will try to keep you sane and bring some chuckles along the way as we watch the descent to madness. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Marie Briel.
I'm Heidi Henry. Take care, everybody. See you Thursday at 3. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.